Welcome to the Locum Tenens Strategist Podcast. I'm your host, Simon Parsons, and this is the show where I help healthcare providers take control of your skill set and build a life on your terms by using Locum Tenens work. On this episode, I am going to share with you several ideas on how you can take advantage of tax deductions as a Locum Tenens professional. As they say, it's not about how much money that you make, but how much money that you are able to keep after taxes. So just to be clear, I am not a tax professional. I would highly recommend that you reach out to your audience or your network or your community or your colleagues and see if you can get a referral for somebody who does some higher level tax planning. I don't mean just a normal accountant or a bookkeeper. See if you can find somebody who can get strategic with you and take a look at your situation. You may still be employed, you may not be, you may have a family, you may not have a family. And also they're going to take a look at what you want to do in the future and give you some advice on how you can maximize your tax deductions and be as efficient as possible. They're also going to help you set up the correct entity. So most people start on this journey by bringing in some 1099 income, basically side hustle money. But then people who've been doing this for a while usually set up an LLC. Now, again, I'm not a tax professional, so make sure you check with somebody who does this on a higher level so you can find the best advice as it relates to your situation. All right, my friends, let's dive into some of the tax deductions that come to mind when it comes to being a Locum Tenens professional. The first thing I want to mention is most of us have some type of a home office. I'm sitting here in my home office where I do all my business out of here. And how this works is they'll take the square footage of your home office. So it doesn't have to be technically a home office, but you can create a room to run your business out of. And they're going to divide the square footage of this room by your total square footage. For example, if my home is 4,000 square feet and my home office is 400 square feet, that's 10% of the home. So I am able to deduct 10% of my mortgage as well as my utilities and also tap into a little bit of depreciation that can help me out on my taxes. Okay, number two, we all have to eat, right? So you have to eat on your Locum Tenens assignments, and that is not something that typically gets reimbursed from your Locum Tenens company unless you've specifically negotiated it. But typically they will include airline tickets, they will take care of your rental and your hotel, but meals are not typically included. However, since this is business, you can take advantage of a tax deduction. So make sure that you are saving all of your receipts while you are on your assignment. Next up are your certifications such as your ATLS, your BLS, your PALS, your ACLS, as well as your continuing education like your CMEs. Also, your licenses. So some of these may be reimbursed by your employer if you are still employed. If you're working with me and doing Locum Tenens work, I try to help out my physicians as much as possible, and I do have funds to help out with licensing because that helps me give them a bigger footprint to work in the United States. But if any situation does not apply to you being reimbursed or having your certifications, your education, or your licenses paid for, then make sure you use that as a tax deduction. Next up, professional fees or membership dues. So I'm not quite aware of what is required of you as a physician because there's so many different specialties out there, but I'm sure that most of you have some type of membership fees or membership dues. Professional fees is what they call it. Those are tax deductible as well. Number 6 is healthcare insurance, or health savings account. So if you are not employed and you don't have this being subsidized, if you are running a Locum Tenens business and you're paying for your healthcare insurance through the marketplace, make sure that you are using that as a tax deduction. Number 7, this is one of my favorite deductions because I've used this in the past. So about 15 years ago when I had my first major online business, I was able to put away so much money into my retirement because of what's called a self-employed pension. It's called a SEP IRA for short. And there's also a solo 401k. So what's really cool about this is a traditional IRA. I'm not sure what the limits are now, but at the time people could only put away $4,000 into their IRA and maybe $19,000 for their 401k if they were employed. I think that's gone up to maybe $21,000 or $22,000 as of the time of this recording. But what's really cool about a SEP IRA and a solo 401k is if you are a business owner, You can literally be putting away 25% of your income away and shelter it from taxes into your retirement account. So if you're bringing in around $240,000 into your Locum Tenens business, this means that you can put away $60,000 per year into your SEP IRA or your solo 401k. Now, $60,000 or 25% is the limit, but that still vastly exceeds what you can do with a normal IRA or a normal 401k. Next up, this is one of my favorites, and I would highly recommend that you do this. A lot of physicians that I talk to are so overwhelmed and so busy because when you take off and you start your own business, maybe you're still employed, but when you start doing your own Locum Tenens business, there's a lot that can come at you when it comes to paperwork. I often feel like sometimes being in medicine, half the work that you do is paperwork, and I'm sure you can relate as I say that. But this day and age, you can take advantage of a virtual assistant that can take so much of this work off of your plate. All the stuff that you don't want to do in your business, other than actually showing up and practicing medicine, you can likely outsource that to a VA. A VA costs about $10 to $16 per hour, and they're so easy to work with, and they can do the little things like helping you out with applications, keeping things nice and tidy and organized, making sure that they are checking your messages and your emails and basically acting as a gatekeeper. So most of you have some type of an admin or an assistant in your practice or your employment, but this is something that you can bolt on to your Locum Tenens business. And I see so many people struggling and being so busy when it comes to their Locum Tenens business, and they're not using a VA. I don't know why. I use two of them. I have two VAs that help me out with things like content creation, with social media management, with helping me out with just like keeping things organized, getting appointments booked for me and whatnot. So make sure that you take advantage of a VA so that you spend less time in your business and more time making money and doing what you love. It's a great tax deduction to take advantage of. This last one, number 9, I'm going to throw out there. This is not something that I am 100% sure on, but I want you to check with your tax professional about this. But some of the physicians that I work with, they'll simply fill up their gas on their way to the airport instead of just filling up as they're driving around town, because they're filling up their gas while they're on assignment technically, or while they're doing business. If you can't do that, I definitely know that you can take advantage of mileage, meaning that's giving you gas plus a little bit of wear and tear on your vehicle. So if the airport is 10 miles away from me, 10 miles each way, so that's 20 miles, I can find out what the mileage is, what the going mileage rate is, and use that as a tax deduction. All right, here's the most important thing. I want you to come up with a system that helps you keep everything organized. Now, taxes for me have always been really overwhelming, and they've been things that I tend to like brush off, which means that I'm leaving money on the table. So I do have a tax professional that handles everything. And every month I send in all of my statements from my bank and all the receipts that I have, and they take care of everything and organize it in a way that keeps me from having to do that, right? It's pretty easy for me because I do all my business online. So all I need to do is set up a folder in my email, and anytime I get some type of a receipt, I just shuffle it in there. Plus I have my bank account statements that help me with this. But if you are a Locum Tenens professional, you're going to be out there on assignment doing things like getting your meals. So you've got to come up with a system to make sure that you're not just blowing that stuff off, because that is money that is left on the table. There's a lot of good apps out there that can scan your receipts as you get them, and that way you don't have to worry about them. So one of my favorite apps that I keep hearing about, this is actually recommended by the magazine Forbes, is Zoho Expense. So if you want to do some research and find an app that helps you scan receipts in, if you want to just take my advice for this, I haven't personally used this because, again, I'm completely remote, but I'm trusting Forbes that this is a good one. Zoho Expense. They rated that very highly. It's a really good way. It's basically a scanner on your phone. So after you finish up a meal, make sure you get a receipt, scan it in right there. But whatever you do, create a system that works for you, something that is repeatable. When you step into something new, things can be overwhelming, and taxes is definitely one of those things for me that I tend to avoid. So I've found ways to keep track of everything by creating systems that are repeatable for me. The last thing that I would advise you to do, so if you're traveling on assignment, hopefully you listen to audiobooks or you're willing to, but there's a book called Tax-Free Wealth written by Tom Wheelwright. I suggest you pick up that audiobook, or maybe if you like to read books, the Kindle or the paper copy of it. And that will give you some really good understanding of like the flexibility and the freedom that can come when you start to take advantage of some of these things that have to do with taxes. So I hope that this episode has been of value to you, and hopefully this inspires you to take better control of your tax situation. Again, make sure that you find a tax professional that does strategic tax planning and can look at your specific situation as it relates to your overall picture. All right, my friends, I'm going to wrap up this episode. So I've just created a really cool new guide to doing locums. It's called the Ultimate Locum Tenens Playbook. I've been so excited because I've been working on this, and it has a bunch of my hacks and my tips and my tools and my tricks, as well as some really good case studies from the physicians that I work with. I'm going to drop a link to that in the show notes so that you can grab that. Thank you, my friends. I will catch you on the next episode.